This is a quick overview of a new application I'm working on. I call it Landscape Stacker, and it's for stacking and combining images of landscapes, but basically anything where the camera's locked down on a tripod. The basic idea is that you take a bunch of images with a fairly short exposure time over a period of a minute or two or three, and then later combine them with this app to smooth out or blur the surface of water so that the waves go away. It will also blur anything that's moving, clouds, waterfalls, a variety of things. And things that aren't moving, of course, they just stay there and should be crisp and sharp. The, uh, the reason you might use this is because you might be working in conditions where you can't use a very dense neutral density filter, say like a 10-stop neutral density filter to slow things down, because the filter doesn't fit your camera. You can't get a filter that's appropriate for your lens. Very wide angle lenses sometimes have problems in the corners, particularly with very strong neutral density filters. There might be issues with rain, snow, sleet, whatever getting on the filter, and maybe the lens hood protects the lens from these things, but there's no way to protect the filter from them. So there are conditions where you might not be able to use a filter, but you might want to have the effect of a very long exposure, and this application lets you have that. So this example actually is from a place where the weather conditions made it difficult to use filters on very wide angle lenses because of stuff getting on the filters. This is a collection of 40 images. They were taken, I think, too quickly. This is an early experiment. They're 50 megapixels each, so it's a lot of data that we're pushing around here and that we've just loaded. I've processed these, the raw files with Lightroom, and I've reduced the contrast all the way and reduced the brightness slightly. I'm trying to avoid blowing out the bright area here where the sun is, but I still want to have detail in the darks here, and you'll see that later in post or finish processing this image with Landscape Stacker, we could then take it into Photoshop or Lightroom or Affinity Photo, something like that, and then burn and dodge as necessary to darken the sun here and brighten the darker areas in the rocks. Okay, so what we have here is the result of taking the mean, so it's the average of 40 images. So at every pixel we've taken the average of the 40 images, and you can see that we've smoothed out the water quite a bit. And one of the side effects of this, of course, is we've also reduced the noise a lot, so we can brighten this and not worry about bringing out any noise. Let's brighten this a little bit so we can see better what we're doing here. So there's our rocks in the foreground. I also have a lot of detail in the mountainside here, although unfortunately it's slightly out of focus and there might be some snow and stuff in the air as well. Okay, but there's other things we can do. So here's the result of combining the images with median. So median leaves in some more sharp edges here in the bright parts in the water, and you'll see over here there's a bit more waves. So that's median. Let's switch back to mean. Right, so this is smoother in the mean, and this is also smoother with the mean. But there's other things we can do. There's max. So this takes the brightest pixel at each location. So this basically brings out all the waves. It also shows you all these lines here. This pattern here, texture pattern, I think that's the result of a wave coming up and being captured at several different locations by the shutter going off fairly quickly at 4 frames per second or so. So we get this repeated pattern, the same over here. I think that these pictures were taken too quickly, basically as fast as I can, and I should have done something like one exposure every half second or second over the period of 2 or 3 minutes instead of as fast as I can. Okay, there's also min. This takes the darkest value at every pixel. So this gives a completely different effect, which might be appropriate in some circumstances. So going through these again, here's the mean, which probably most closely approximates what you'd get if you used a neutral density filter. Median, which is somewhat similar but has its own characteristics. It leaves a little bit of sharp edges in. And then min and max. And of course, there's many others that are possible, and I will be exploring them. So this is the start of an application. If you have any suggestions or ideas, please feel free to let me know. I think this is something that might be useful to some people here. But before we go, let's just zoom in here. And you can see that we do have quite a bit of detail. Let's crank up the brightness so we can see. We do have quite a bit of detail left here in this rock, so that when we go into well, this is max, which is probably not the best. Let's switch to mean. When we go into some image editor for final finishing, we can bring out the detail in the dark areas here without any fear of bringing out the noise, because this image is going to be a very low noise image. We can also jump out and look at a piece of sky. Let's look over here, and I don't know how well you can see this in the video, but there's essentially no noise in the cloud. Step ahead to another image, and you can see, well, at least I can, a little bit of noise in it. We come back to the composite, and there's no noise there. Okay, so do let me know if you have any suggestions, ideas, or would like to be a beta tester.